everyone, and welcome back to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight, we've got a special one. We recorded some Judge's Tower. What is Judge's Tower, you ask? Well, it is a specialty format that was created by the judge community at large, and it's supposed to test a player on how well they truly understand the rules interactions in this game. So there is a large set of rules here and off to my left that we can go through right now. Now, there are several different varieties of this kind of game. You have a bunch of different house rules. There is an accepted version. We play it slightly tweaked at the store, but that is the set of rules that you see here is the set of rules we use at our store. So all of the players are sharing their deck and they're also sharing the graveyard. So for the purposes of the game, you own every card that you draw, additional card for each level of judge that you are. So a level 1 judge will start with 2 cards in hand. A level 2 judge will start with 3 cards in hand, and so on. You must play every card in your hand as soon as legally possible. So instances during your draw step, for instance. All optionals are mandatory, so if a card says you may do this, you must do that. To the extent that you can fulfill the requirements on a card. Say you have a card that says target spell does this. If there's no target spell on the stack, then you can't cast that card. You have to wait until you can't. You must activate every activated ability of all cards that you have at least once per turn. That is not just once per your turn, that is once per every turn. And also activated abilities as well as planeswalker abilities are activated from bottom of the card up. So if you have an activated ability that you can't activate because of whatever conditions, then you go to the next one up and so forth. If a spell or ability has an X in its cost, that X is 5. So if there is a card that says pay X, draw X cards, it will be pay 5, draw 5 cards. You must always attack with all legal attackers, and you must block with all legal blockers, and all players have infinite life and infinite mana. Now, when you lose the game, that's when you commit a rules game violation. So if you do not follow any of these rules, then you are out. And so basically how we do it at the store is we have to let you fully resolve your turn or resolve whatever action and miss that activation or whatever it is. And that's when you're called out. It's like, okay, you lost that. So say if somebody needed to cast an instant in their draw step and they moved to their main phase, that's when they would have lost. And then you play until there's only one person left. And that's all there is to it. Now, a small caveat for the games that you are about to watch, we tried to resolve these cards the best that we could to the knowledge that we had. So if there is a mistake and there is a judge watching out there that went, that guy should have been out of there 10 turns ago, I understand. I watched the video too, and the cards resolved the way they did that night. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is going to be played at single speed. I think if it was a double speed game, there would be no way for me to keep up with all of the interactions. I'm going to be trying to walk you through what's happening here. This is the first time that I've ever tried to commentate on a Judge's Tower video. Let's get into the action. So we have 4 players for this game: AJ, myself, Dylan, and Andrew. And I believe Dylan is on the play here. Dylan is starting with a Jalira, Master Polymorphist, and a Perplexing Chimera. So Jalira doesn't really do anything when she comes into play. Perplexing Chimera, this is going to be a card we have to watch out for. So whenever an opponent casts a spell, you try to exchange control of that spell with Perplexing Chimera. So Dylan declares with Temple Bell on the stack that he must gain control of Temple Bell. But Andrew says, I'm holding priority, and casts Riddle of Lightning. Let's see if I can find that card. Here we are. So Riddle of Lightning does stuff too. You choose a target, scry 3. And so the problem is here that Dylan is talking about, okay, when does this happen? He's choosing Temple Bell. Riddle of Lightning goes on the stack. Dylan lets it happen. And the problem is that it is a triggered ability. So Dylan did not declare that he was going to change targets of Riddle of Lightning. There would have been 2 stacks of the Perplexing Chimera. And so Dylan is out. So Riddle of Lightning goes to resolve. We're scrying 3 here. Perplexing Chimera. Whenever an opponent casts a spell. So because it wasn't resolved, yeah. So Andrew reveals Whispering Madness off of the top of the library. Deals 4 damage to somebody, doesn't really matter who. Temple Bell is getting activated since it does have that activated ability. The stack was clear once Riddle of Lightning was resolved. All players will draw a card. Temple Bell, right here. So with Andrew being the active player, he is going to cast Whispering Madness, which means that we all discard our hand and then draw cards equal to the largest number discarded this way. So it is going to be 2, since both AJ and myself had 2 cards in hand. Andrew is still the active player, so he's going to go and cast. He's going to check the graveyard really quick in case something did have flashback or be able to cast from the graveyard. We're seeing a Diviner Spirit enter play. It's not really going to do anything until it attacks. It draws cards, you and that player, whenever it deals combat damage. He cannot cast that second card in hand, and we all passed priority. So you see in draw step, we're drawing a Dangerous Wager. So Dangerous Wager is going to have you discard your hand and then draw 2 cards. So 2 cards discarded, 2 cards drawn. Dangerous Wager is going to fully resolve here. Going to the grave. We are still in draw step. I think we're going to move to main phase, though. Thinking about how Dangerous Wager works, I suppose. Making sure that, if you had another instant in your hand, is it a part of the cost? Discarding your hand, but it's a part of the resolution of the spell. So we're going to see Charmbreaker Devils come into play here. This one's a really crafty one, since you get +4/+0 for every instant and sorcery that is cast. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you return instant or sorcery at random from your graveyard to your hand. Now, this card here, Bone Shards, or Bone Splinters, excuse me, is going to target Charmbreaker Devils as a part of casting the spell. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you have to sacrifice a creature. So targeting is before paying costs. So you pick the Charmbreaker Devils, you sacrifice the Charmbreaker Devils, the actual resolution of the spell, destroying target creature, fizzles, and there is no Charmbreaker Devils trigger, at least the way that I understand it, because that only goes on the stack if the spell actually gets cast and the card is still in play upon resolution of the spell. Or of the cast, at least, because it was paid. The sacrifice was a part of the payment. So we are moving to AJ's turn. A lot of talking about how that actually worked, because it's kind of a very complicated version of the rules. Because I believe actually casting a spell requires like 7 or 8 different steps. Okay, on AJ's turn, we're going to see Riku of 2 Reflections. So this guy, if he stays in play, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you can pay 2 and copy it. And if you have another non-token creature into the battlefield, you can pay 2 and copy it. So basically, you're copying everything you do with Riku. Now, Andrew did not have priority to cast this until Green Sun's Twilight was actually cast. So Green Sun's Twilight was cast. The trigger went on the stack. There's a second copy of Green Sun's Twilight. Let's pull up that card. Green Sun's Twilight. That other card, Strangling Soot. Lots of cards. There's actually 83 cards that we go through here. Strangling Soot just destroys target creature with toughness 3 or less, which did get Riku, but now there is a Strangling Soot in the graveyard with flashback. And now we are going to resolve the copy of Green Sun's Twilight. Reveal the top X cards, X being 5, +1. And you're going to choose a creature and or a land from among them, put them into play. And if it's 5 or more, you put them into hand. If X is 5 or more, then you put them into play. So AJ is going to look at the top 12 cards of the library. He's going to do it twice, so each individually, top 6. We're going to put a Moorland Haunt as the land, which can exile a creature and make a bird. And then Carador Chieftain. Carador, where is he? Oh, is it spelled with a K? It is. Carador Ghost Chieftain, being able to cast creatures from your graveyard once per turn. So activating Moorland Haunt before the resolution of the second Green Sun Zenith. The Strangling Soot is also in the graveyard. AJ checking. He goes to cast the Green Sun Zenith. He loses the game because he could have cast the Strangling Soot on his 1/1 bird made by the Moorland Haunt, or his 1/1 spirit. So AJ is out. And I guess they decided to change the art here. A nice donation from Dylan to the tower. During upkeep, Andrew activates Temple Bell. He and myself draw the card. A little bit of talking here. It looks like, Banishing Stroke. So this is a very awkward card. The Miracle cast. The Miracle is a trigger. So it is revealed as the first card in my hand. But with that Miracle trigger on the stack, I can then cast it as an instant for 6 to do the effect. So, do not want to pay Miracle cost, must show the Miracle cost, as it is a resolution of this card. Putting Diviner Spirit on the bottom of the library. Banishing Stroke resolved. Now we're going to Andrew's draw step. And I think the big pauses, there's a lot of pauses in this game because you're never entirely certain if you're going to miss something, maybe either in the grave or in your hand or something on the field. We're doing a pretty good job of keeping the field clean. I think this is the Crimson Fleet Commodore making Andrew the Monarch. And then he cast, what is that, Rexiel the Risen Deep? He doesn't really do anything. Oops, sorry. Well, he's not coming back. All right, so Rise of the Dark Realms. Now, this is a pretty tough one, especially for this late in the game. You're going to take all creature cards from all graveyards, put them back onto the battlefield under your control. So I almost put Asika's Chariot into play there. Let's see if I even have Asika's Chariot on here. I do not, because it never came up. So those go back to the grave, and we have a ton of stuff coming into play. So we know the Charmbreaker Devils. We know... So Aether Membrane is just a creature that has a block effect. The Null Mage Advocate is going to have a tap effect, returning 2 cards from opponent's graveyard to their hand, destroy target artifact or enchantment. And then I think that's a Zenith Chronicler. Whenever a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, each other player draws a card. So, full resolution of the spell. Nothing happens right now. Pass the turn. Temple Bell, draw a card. So we are still in upkeep. Not sure if it matters. Going to flash in Notion Thief. This is a multicolored card. So I go to draw here, then think about it, and then realize Notion Thief is not actually in play yet. So I would not draw the card because the Zenith Chronicler activation or triggered effect is going on the stack before Notion Thief is in play. Andrew draws that extra card off of Zenith Chronicler. Notion Thief resolves. We are now in Andrew's... Yeah, he drew the extra card, so he had his draw step, and then we went to main phase. The Vidalcan Orrery is going to make everything have flash, so he stacked those 2 creatures in response cast, And then we're seeing attacks here. So Rexiel coming in and the Crimson Fleet Commodore. Now, doing my best to get Andrew to kill my most problematic creatures. Charmbreaker Devils would be nice to get rid of, but that Notion Thief can just end the game. I mean, you end up drawing, especially with like multiple people in play, you draw so many cards. It's really bad. You want to draw the least amount of cards and have the least amount of interactions in order to stay alive in this game. So Trample with the Crimson Fleet Commodore means that he must deal as much damage as possible to each of those creatures until they are assigned dead. And since they're both like X1s, it's not much. But then the other ones, he just gets to decide where to put all of his Rexiel damage, which is Rexiel, a 5/8. So he just kills Aether Membrane, but Aether Membrane says in blocks, return that creature to its owner's hand at end of combat. It's a delayed trigger for me to remember. So we are now at the end of combat. Thinking about the Monarch. Oh, he replayed it while he was still in combat because of Veldalken Orrery. He still has priority. So this is what we talked about a lot. If you draw a card with Monarch, can you still cast this card if it has instant flash? We decided yes, because it is a part of your end step. So we can be corrected if we're wrong about that, but we played this card in that way. So this is Grave Exchange. We're going to return a creature card from graveyard to hand. Target player sacrifices a creature. Decided to bring back Aether Membrane, and then sacrificed Squee, targeting himself. Recast Aether Membrane, since it does have flash. We are in upkeep here. Null Mage Advocate is being activated, returning 2 target cards from an opponent's graveyard to their hand. This is Andrew's graveyard as well as mine, so I can send 2 cards back. And I think I'm destroying the Temple Bell here. I'm going to choose the cards first. Green Sun's Twilight. And Jace. Jace, Architect of Thought. With Squee on the stack, Null Mage Advocate activated. Send these 2 back to your hand. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Destroying the Temple Bell. Trying to bring back Squee. Also have the Charmbreaker Devil trigger. With those activated ability triggers on the stack, we are going to cast Jace, Architect of Thought, and cast Green Sun's Twilight, since they both have flash. Checking the top 6 to put a creature and land into play. There's not a ton of lands in this deck. Obstinate, not Bailiff, Obstinate Familiar. This is a very good card to draw. If you would draw a card, you may skip that draw instead. So if you can get Familiar to stick, you don't need to draw any more cards for the rest of the game. This is a personal Judge's Tower that I put together. So it kind of ran off of a list, but I've curated it over time. And I like the idea of a couple of safe cards in the deck if you can draw them. So we are resolving Charmbreaker Devil's trigger here. Randomly returning Grave Exchange to play. And then I go to untap my Null Mage Advocate during my upkeep. We all realize, why did you do that? And it is technically a rules violation. And so I lose the game. I think I untapped it, and then we saw the time. And I was going, you know what, that's a rules violation. I'm out too. So Andrew gets round 1. We are now into round 2. Starting the game with a confusion in the ranks. Now this is going to be confusing. Mostly because I feel like we kind of arbitrarily decided halfway through who is going to be responsible for this trigger. Now, when you read the card, artifact, creature, enchantment comes into play. Its controller chooses target permanent another player controls that shares a type with it, exchange control of those permanents. For some reason, we decided whoever controls the confusion in the ranks is the person who needs to tell the players. This is incorrect, but it is the way that we're going to be playing the card in this video. Now, I can never remember the name of this guy. It's like Kethek. Here he is. Kethek Crucible Goliath. He's pretty cool. You can sacrifice another creature at the end of your turn. If you do, reveal cards off the top until you reveal a non-legendary with less mana value and put it onto the battlefield. The rest of the cards go on the bottom. We did see a Unified Will there. And it turns out that Dylan did not control more creatures than Andrew when that card tried to resolve. And therefore... yeah, so you can see right here that I was about to pack it up, but Andrew said, no, it's my trigger. And I go, oh, okay. So played a Starfield of Nyx. And it does enchantment things. It is on the battlefield. And now played a Make-A-Wish, which revealed that, or returned that unified world to my hand. So a Chandra Ablaze is going on the stack. Unified Will. I don't control any creatures more than AJ, so it does resolve. Chandra Ablaze, one of the bigger cards in the tower. So this is -2. Each player discards their hand and draws 3 cards. Putting a lot of gas on the field. So AJ is the active player, so he's going to have to resolve all of his spells first. And then he's going to be passing priority to Dylan and Andrew, and then myself. So let's see what he does. He's got a Masako the Humorless in his hand, which might get him in trouble here. So this is one of the newer cards, Blade of Shared Souls. This has got a 4 Mirrodin trigger. Or I think we did a lot of arguing about this card. If the 4 Mirrodin trigger is like Living Weapon, whether or not that you can respond to the trigger of the 2/2 coming into play. Masako the Humorless is getting flashed in here. It's basically a creature. You can play it at any time. You could play an instant. So with the sword on the stack, Masako's coming into play. And now I think we're all arguing about whether or not this is going to be equipped. Because the Blade of Shared Souls is also very confusing. Oh, I see. We're arguing about the confusion in the ranks trigger. So Masako goes to Andrew. He takes Kethic. It is the only other creature in play. There are no other artifacts, so Blade can't be exchanged. That doesn't actually do anything when it comes in. We're reading Blade of Shared Souls 100 times, trying to decide. So the 2/2 comes into play. Masako comes back. AJ still controls the Blade of Shared Souls, even though it is equipped to the 2/2. Because Confusion reads whenever an artifact creature comes into play. So it will get that 4 Mirrodin trigger. But AJ can, at sorcery speed, re-equip this card. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to equip it onto Kethic and make it a copy of Masako. Therefore, I think I'm still arguing with him on when that came into play. But basically, this is it's a clone effect. So whatever this thing is attached to, as long as it's equipped to something, you can clone whatever else is in play. And it's not a targeted effect or anything. So what AJ's attempting to do here, I think I got confused as we were reading this card. So that enters the battlefield. That switches back. That comes into play. It's equipped. I think we did this one wrong. I'm arguing very, very vehemently. I don't exactly remember. I'm lost as much as you guys are. What I think here is Andrew should have that 2/2 traded back for Masako. Because I think I kept arguing on like how Living Weapon works, and if the creature enters the battlefield, it's not actually a triggered effect. In any case, what we ended up doing was copying Kethic. A legendary rule applies, kills that, and then he goes to equip Kethic with the sword, and then changes it into Masako. So there's the equip, because that is an activated ability that he must do. There's a Breeze Keeper. He's going to equip the Breeze Keeper to that. Then he's going to change it to Kethic. Breeze Keeper's out of there. Don't even worry about it. And then I think he's going to pass turn and not re-equip. Oh. There's an argument to be made there for AJ, though, that he activated that equip twice. And so if he had already activated it, then according to the rules of the game, that he didn't need to re-equip it again. So I'm not sure about that one, to be completely honest. AJ, you might be redeemed there. And we had you lose on technicality. Dylan making his play here. Going with that Blood Rush Goblin. I can't remember what it's called. Bone Splitter? Something? Nope. In any case, this guy is going to come into play. He actually has a Blood Rush ability and can be brought back from the yard, but just casting on main phase, he doesn't really do anything. So we're going to see Masako, the Humorless, come in here, and we're going to see a Bone Shards for it. Or no, that's not a Bone Shards. That's a Dead Ringers. So Dead Ringers is a fun card that says destroy 2 target non-black creatures unless one isn't. Either one is a color, the other isn't. It's a stupid way to phrase things, and in a completely ruthless game of Judge's Tower, if you don't destroy the creatures, basically how this card reads is if they're the same color, destroy them. If they aren't, nothing happens. You can still target them though, and they both have to be non-black. So if you target a red-blue creature and a red creature, then they don't get destroyed because one isn't the color unless either one is a color the other isn't. Yeah, fun wording. So nothing happens. And then we play a Hypersonic Dragon. And that's not a sorcery in his hand. So with that trigger on the stack, he could have cast some sorceries. But it wasn't, so it's okay. And then we're going to cast a Back from the Brink. Exiling a creature from the yard, making a token of it. Except it's only at sorcery speed, so Confusion in the Ranks triggers. And they swap. So Andrew's up here. On his turn, he's going to have to activate Back from the Brink. It's like, no, you should probably draw your card first, since it's sorcery speed. Very hesitant to draw, as drawing indicates moving to a new phase. Or a new step, I guess. Draw step, untap, upkeep. Are they phases or are they... I don't know. In any case, sorry for rambling there. We're going to bring back Izoni Thousand-Eyed. H-I. So Izoni has an Enter the Battlefield trigger that's going to make 1/1 insects. The Breeze Keeper is going to be that creature, and then you get to sacrifice another creature. So with the Undergrowth trigger on the stack, we are sacrificing Hypersonic Dragon. And so when that Undergrowth trigger fully resolves, there are 2 creatures in the yard, which is going to make 2 insects. This Izoni is not actually in play. It is a token copy. That's why there is a die above it. And then I think that was because of confusion in the ranks. No confusion triggers happened. And the way that we were playing, I was in charge of making sure that confusion in the ranks triggered. This is not the correct way to resolve the card, obviously, but that is the way we resolved it in this game. And now we see Andrew just dumping his hand. He's got a lot of creatures that don't actually do anything. Although the Golden Argosy is what lost him the game there, because he cast it, but then he went and cast another creature, and he did not crew this either in response or... as the first action that he could do, since crewing can be done at instant speed. And so we are into our final game. Now, we switched out, or AJ decided to bow out here, and so Eric has stepped in for our 4th. We're starting with a Spellgorger Weird, I believe is the name of this guy. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on him. Now he's asking me how this card works. And he's asking about bone shards, which is basically exactly bone splinters. So we're going to have the exact same interaction. The target is declared of the spell before the costs are paid. The cost is paid, and then the target creature is gone because it was sacrificed as a part of the cost, and the spell fizzles. Does not get a counter because it was not in play when the card was actually on the stack. And now we're going to see an Idle Thoughts and a Phyrexian Metamorph. Now, I'm chastising him here because I think he should have lost, going to just allow this Phyrexian Metamorph to come into play, since that is a sorcery speed cast, and he did not declare that he was trying to draw a card if he has no cards in hand. But he decided that with the Phyrexian Metamorph on the stack, he was responding with the draw card if you have no cards in hand. And Phyrexian Metamorph, of course, dies. There's nothing else to copy in the board state, so it comes in as a 0/0, dies to state-based effects. Now, Andrew does have to activate Idle Thoughts every turn, but it doesn't say anything about drawing the card if you have cards in hand. It's just if you just have to announce it. As long as you have a card in hand, you're not drawing extra cards. Then we play Peace Talks, which is a very confusing card, but doesn't really amount to anything. During this turn and the next one, players cannot declare an attack and cannot play spells or abilities that target any permanent or player. So this is during Andrew's turn, and it's going to be during my turn that this effect is in play. Nobody can attack, and nobody can target players or permanents. All right, we're going to see a Glimpse of Freedom, one of the more annoying new ads. So this is going to draw a card, and it has Escape. So you have to exile 5 cards from the yard, and then it is cast and goes back to the graveyard. It's not flashback. It's just like Uro. So if you have a large yard, Glimpse of Freedom continues to make you draw cards. We're going to see Esperzoa. Just bounce an artifact at the beginning of your upkeep. And the Stormfist Crusader. Everybody draws a card at the beginning of your upkeep. So we're going into Eric's upkeep. He declares Idle Thoughts, activates it, has a card in hand, does not draw another. Eric trying to decide what he's going to do here. I'm not sure what that card is. I'm sorry about the glare. Oh, it's the Crier. Sky Crier. So this is another fun new include. You and target opponent each draw a card. And it is an activated ability, so you have to draw it each turn. I have to activate it each turn. Just a lot of shenanigans. So this is Casualties of War, which is going to clear up the board a little bit. Basically get to target one of each permanent type and destroy them. So we have Artifact for Esperzoa, Enchantment for Idle Thoughts, and Creature for Sky Crier. And that was everything that he was able to target. And I think Eric has to leave here. So he is going to bow out, but he wants to finish his turn. So he's going to cast Glimpse of Freedom by exiling 5 cards out of the yard. And it's just going to draw a card. It is on the stack, so if there was like multiple, more than 10 cards in the yard, you would have to fully resolve Glimpse of Freedom before trying to resolve it again. We see an Oust that is just going to put something second from the top. And I don't know what that other card was. But I guess it didn't do anything in the game state. So Eric eliminates himself, and we are on to Dylan's turn. Dylan goes to cast Unburial Rites. Unburial Rites, of course, anybody who's played in Ravnica Standard is going to know that this is going to bring a creature back from the yard. It's going to bring back Phyrexian Metamorph. It is going to die. Now, Unburial Rites does have flashback. But instead, he's going to choose to Cast that Glimpse of Freedom, escaping again, drawing an extra card. More cards exiled. We're going to see that Stormfist Crusader. Who would have thought? 2 cards off the top. And a Jace Beleren. So Jace Beleren, resolving from the bottom up. Target player has to draw a card. Now this is one of the very few cases that it would be a lot more fun if we could each draw a card. But that is not the rules of the game. Choosing me to draw that card doesn't do anything. And it looks like Dylan is going to pass his turn. Going to Andrew's turn. Checks the Stormfist Crusader. Yeah, no, that's only his turn. And he's going to play the new Glissa. This is Glissa Sunslayer. So whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you get to choose one, draw a card, lose a life, destroy a target enchantment, or remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. I added this one not realizing that the last one said up to 3 counters, so you can remove 0 counters and just continue to do that. I thought it'd be really fun to have a card that said you draw a card and lose 1 life every time it comes in. But it's still interesting because it's got First Strike and Death Touch, as we will see here. So we see a Flicker Wisp. People should be familiar with this card. Exiling a permanent, returning to the battlefield at the end of turn. Resetting his Jace for him there, making sure that sticks around. And then a Mesa Enchantress. Whenever casting an enchantment, I'm going to draw a card. So the Stormfist Crusader goes off. Oh, I missed it. Andrew's contested field, contested war zone. Yes, you can make attacking creatures get +1/+0 until end of turn at any time. So if you tap this for mana instead of pumping your creatures, you would lose the game. Jace making Andrew draw an extra card. Diluvian Primordial. Down here. Exiling a instant or sorcery from the yard and then casting it. So this is actually going to get rid of Glimpse of Freedom, which is really nice. Not have to deal with that card anymore. And a good old Preordain. Sometimes we do have normal cards in the cube, or in the Judge's Tower. I like the idea of this since you can sometimes set up your opponent to have a terrible draw. But it looks like Dylan doesn't want to see one of those cards in the game state at all. So Preordain to the yard. Casting Strionic Resonator. So Strionic Resonator copies target triggered ability you control. Just a triggered ability. So like if that Diluvian Primordial came in, he could have copied it with the Resonator. Now we're going to see Urg, Spawn of Turg. Equal to the number of lands, power equal to the number of lands in your yard. Beginning your upkeep, look at the top card, put that card into your grave, and then you can sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. We're going to see the Stormfist attack. Double block. Stormfist Crusader is a 2/2, so the Flicker Wisp will kill it. Then he chooses to deal 1 damage to the Flicker Wisp and 1 damage to the Mesa Enchantress, keeping that around. Passing turn. Was he going to try and copy the Contested War Zone trigger, I wonder? All right, Andrew going to his turn here. He's got 3 cards in hand. We're going to see a Sarcomancy hit the field. Sarcomancy, when it comes into play, put a +1/+1, or put a zombie token into play. And if you have no zombies, it deals 1 damage to you. Then we're going to see an Atris, and we're going to see Atris basically doing a mini Fact or Fiction. 3 cards, 2 piles, 1 face up, 1 face down. You get to choose one. Goes into your hand. The other goes to the grave. And then Jace's Archivist down here. Ugh. Sorry, it's a little difficult. There you go. Basically, windfalling everyone if you have cards in hand. So everybody draws cards equal to the largest discard. But it's not really going to matter because we got no cards in hand. I think this is Ingenuity Engine here. Cascade, it's a 7 cast, so you get a free cast off the top. Sacrifice an artifact, return another artifact. Return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. You know what's interesting about Strionic Resonator? Is it you control? Okay, you control. So we're going to see Felidar Cub come into play here. It is going to enter play, but it is immediately going to be sacked to destroy Sarcomancy. And now we have attacks declared with Glissa. But what I hadn't realized is because it's got First Strike and Death Touch, you can just completely clear boards. He decides to deal 1 damage to each of them. I think if he really wanted to, Andrew could assign all 3 damage that Glissa has to one creature if he wanted to make sure that people kept, board states active. But this way is a lot more amusing. It kills everything. We're going to see Izoni. Or no, yeah. No, not Izoni. Ink Eyes, Servant of Oni. They sound similar in my head. So you have to regenerate Ink Eyes because it's like a bubble that goes on it. It's an activated ability. And just because it has that bubble now, so if it is killed, then it regenerates and taps, stays around. But it is an activated ability, so you have to activate it as soon as you can. Then we're going to see Deceiver of Form. Where is that guy? Here he is. So Deceiver of Form. At the beginning of combat, you reveal the top card of the library. If it's a creature, they all turn into Bazaar Trader. So Bazaar Trader is revealed off the top. And so I used the Mesa Enchantress Bazaar Trader that didn't have Summoning Sickness to donate my Izoni to Dylan. Now it goes to the bottom. Dylan reads Izoni again. Or, gosh, I keep doing that. Reads Ink Eyes again. And I pass my combat. And Dylan says, yeah, that's fine. And I think this is where he will lose. He goes to draw. And Ink Eyes was not activated when he was passed. And even if that was the case, he was not activated during upkeep of Dylan's turn. And that is a rules loss. So Dylan is out. So we are now over to Andrew. We see him doing his contested war zone, and then he's activating that Jace's Archivist. There are no cards in hand, so nobody draws anything. And here we go to turn. Reading Nico Ona. When Nico Ona comes into play, destroy target enchantment. There are no enchantments in play, so that won't matter. But if you play a spirit or arcane spell, you return Nico Ona to hand. So Andrew kind of setting up his field here, seeing what he needs to attack with. Decides to get in with his 3/2 zombie, his Atris, and his Glissa. Now Deceiver of Forms is the only thing that can block. Decides to block Glissa because it's got First Strike. It dies. Damage is dealt. And the turn is passed. Now you see we do run out of time here, but we decide to finish this one out. Just to kind of show how much time has passed. This has been the first 15 minutes of the third round. Drawing a Salt Skitter. Whenever another creature comes into play, remove Salt Skitter from the game. Return Salt Skitter to play under its owner's control at end of turn. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't declare attacks with Mesa Enchantress. I think I just lost. Yeah, I'm almost sure of it. So, even though it has 0 health, it's not a defender. Therefore, I lost the game. So Andrew actually wins this one. Not even realizing that when I edited the video that we are currently watching together here. We're going to play it out, though, as more action does happen here. So if I didn't make that rules game violation, it's almost not fair because I do end up winning this. But we'll give the game to Andrew, of course. Now what we see here is Livio is entering the battlefield, getting to exile another target creature, Salt Skitter, being exiled when it enters the battlefield. Under Livio is the Atris, so Andrew is going to activate Livio again here on his turn. He's going to target his zombie token, so it's just gone for good. But then during his turn, he's going to be able to bring all of those creatures back. We're going to see Hellamar Depths, the land, basically Bad Scry. We're looking at the top 3 cards here, putting them back on top of the library in any order, and that's it. No drawing or anything. Used to be a big modern card. And then attacking with the Salt Skitter. Blocking with Livio. So I think Livio is just a what? Where is he? Livio is just a 2/2, so Livio will die. Atris is gone, and we untap. So we see Contested War Zone activated. We see Jace's Archivist activated. And Hostile Negotiations. Now this one gets weird. So you exile the top 3 cards of your library in a face-down pile. Then you exile the top 3 cards of your library in another face-down pile. You look at the cards in both piles. Then turn a pile of your choice face up. An opponent chooses one of those piles. You put that pile into your hand and another into your graveyard. You lose 3 life. Now this is an instant speed spell, so this is happening during his draw step. And we read the card poorly, so you can see that I pick up these cards here thinking that I'm going to look at the cards and then separate them and have him pick one of the piles. No, that is not how the card is read. So we have to take all of these cards. We're just going to shove them back into the pile. I think just the one pile that I looked at. And he's going to have to look at the cards. No, we just get rid of all 6. We say, you know what, forget it. Do it again. So 3 cards, 3 cards. And now Andrew gets to look at these cards. He decides which one he wants me to see face up, and then I give him one of those 2 piles. This is a Concordant Crossroads, which is not in here. Oh, I see. So I decide to put that card into the graveyard because of the Rot Farm skeleton. Our Rot Farm is a graveyard ability, which is only at sorcery speed. You mill the top 4 cards and then you return it to the battlefield. Decides to cast Heartless Act, killing Glissa. Destroy target creature with no counters on it. And he can do all of this stuff at sorcery speed, since the Rot Farm skeleton is also at sorcery speed. He decides to get it out of there to start, just because you don't want to leave it too long in there. We do see a Chainer's Edict go to the yard as well. Which is flashback. Target player sacrifices a creature. And I guess I lose again here. There it is. Salt Skitter is exiled until the end of turn. Nico Ona, it looks like, is being sacrificed for the Chainer's Edict. And now we got some cards in hand. Decides to cast Norn's Wellspring, I believe this is. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1, put an oil counter on Norn's Wellspring, remove 2 oil counters, draw a card. And so we're going to see the Ingenuity Engine activate here, getting rid of Norn's Wellspring, being sacrificed, returning Ingenuity Engine to his hand. Decides to cast it again, gets Cascade, sees Eater of Days enter the battlefield. So this is a pretty good one to draw. When it enters the battlefield, you skip your next 2 turns. But he decides to go again because this is an artifact. He is sacrificing another artifact that he controls to return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. Now he could choose to sacrifice Ingenuity Engine and return the Eater of Days to his hand, but no. He likes to roll the dice and cast Ingenuity Engine as often as he can. So he's going again. We see a Howling Mine. Doesn't do anything. Goes again. A lot of artifacts off the top here. This is a Soul Devi Golem that has an upkeep trigger but nothing else. So I don't think I included it here. So he goes again. All right, so there it is. With the Ingenuity Engine on the stack, Arcane Denial is the next card that comes up. He counters the Ingenuity Engine while it's on the stack and has 2 delayed upkeep triggers for my next turn. That he has to draw 1 card and then draw 2 cards. And then he casts a Namada. That doesn't really do anything. Primeval Warden. It's basically like exile triggers. You get Saprolings, then you sacrifice Saprolings to give him +2/+2. And then I draw my card and I ask Andrew, can I draw my card? And he says, yeah, sure. And then he loses the game because of Arcane Denial. So in that situation, I would have won the game, but we all know that I lost when I didn't attack with that Mesa Enchantress. Well, that's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you are interested in me doing that again, it takes a while to set up, but it is very interesting, and there are a lot of cards that are involved. And we'll try to be better about following the rules a little bit more. We tried really hard, but there are just so many rules that come up. It's difficult to follow sometimes. Thanks for sticking with us all the way to the end here. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel so that you can stay up to date on all of our cool stuff. Thanks as always to Spellhold Games for being around and allowing us to record in their play space. The channel wouldn't exist without them being here. So thanks. There will be a deck list. It's basically just a list of all the cards that are in the Judges Towers. I'm going to put it up on the Cube Cobra, I think, and that should be in the description of this video. And with that, we've reached the end of our video. I've been Eugene, and this is Tuesday Night Legacy. We'll see you next time.